plant the moon lunar group 1. Currently, we're all high school students attending Trinity Hall High School. We decided to plant buckwheat on the moon. For our experiment, we chose to change the ratios of Earth soil to lunar soil in the soil mixture to show NASA how much soil from Earth would be necessary to add to the regolith in order for the plants to have enough nutrients to sprout while still being efficient enough for plant growth in space. After testing 6 different potting mix to regolith ratios, the group determined that 50% regolith to 50% soil mixture was the best. The number of final stems observed was 5, and the average final height of all 3 pots of the same ratio was 16.1 centimeters tall. The average pH of 8 was relatively similar to the rest of the tests, except for the controls. The control groups of the soil had a pH of 3.9. The average moisture of the soil was lower in some pots than others. The plant was being insufficiently watered and therefore led to a lack of moisture in some pots. The only logical explanation for this is that the different potting mixes require different water contents. Since the moisture level is declining as the regolith mixture increases, the regolith was a reason for the lower moisture content in the pots containing the regolith mixture. The amount of sprouts in each pot showed a reflection in the moisture content. The moisture observed in each pot was related to the ratio of potting mix to regolith. In conclusion, the 50% regolith to 50% potting soil mix was the most effective in producing buckwheat plants because it was the tallest plant with an average height of 16.1 centimeters.
Throughout the experiment, adaptations to the growing process were necessary in order for the buckwheat to sprout and grow. It was noticed that after the first few weeks of the experiment, the buckwheat had not yet germinated. Based on the observation that the soil and regolith mixtures were consistently dry, it was concluded that more water needed to be introduced in order to provide adequate germinating conditions for the seeds. In response, the amount of water added was changed from 10 milliliters to 15 milliliters. This greatly increased productivity and growth of the buckwheat, and growth was seen a few days later. Additionally, fluorescent overhead lab lights were used to grow the buckwheat. The lights were on from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. or for 16 hours.
If we were to repeat this experiment, we would have always watered the buckwheat with 15 milliliters as we learned that it was more efficient than 10 milliliters. Additionally, it would have been beneficial to continue this experiment until the buckwheat plants flowered and ultimately produced seeds that, as we could have studied how the soil to regolith mixture affected the plant's long-term growth and the amount of seeds each plant produced. This information would be valuable as we intentionally chose buckwheat because it would be edible for astronauts living on the moon.
Overall, the group learned how to conduct the experiment and accurately verify our hypothesis that the buckwheat plants grown in regolith soil mixtures that contain higher percentages of soil will grow more successfully than those with lesser amounts of soil. The most interesting thing we discovered was that the plants would still sprout in 100% regolith pots, although it took 7 days. For future research, it would have been helpful to allow the plants to grow long enough to grow the crop fully so that the group could take quantifiable data on the full growing cycle of the buckwheat plant. For future research, we would also avoid using clay pots as we found that they were porous and drained our soil of water, making the original watering amount of 5 milliliters insufficient. We therefore had to increase the water quantity to 10 milliliters.
Dear future participants, please know exactly what you're doing before you do it and hold your group members accountable. This lab will only work if everyone is committed to successfully and accurately reporting data, so find friends who want to be all in. Another thing to watch out for would be what prospers, what affects the environment, and think about what your potting vessel will be.